George Carlin said, think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that. What real life example have you seen that validates this view? I'm a physician. I doctor specifically. I will tell you that the longer I work, now 15 years, my standard for the average person continues to decline. Case in point. Thanks to the awful information filtering out there, I had a patient just last week who read that vitamin D helps you resist a coronavirus infection. Well, he had also read that you can get more vitamin D by getting more sun. So he wanted to collect as much light as possible with his eyes. As a result, he stared at the sun for a solid 60 seconds and burned holes directly into his retinas, permanently reducing his vision with no chance at future improvement. This is awful, but it is also hilarious. I'm sorry if you had to explain to this person what they had done. One guy I met said that English is the true language of God because the Bible is written in English. The amount of people who think Jesus lived in the United States is astonishing. I don't think anyone even acknowledges the fact that there's no way for Jesus to be a blue-eyed white guy either. I used to work in travel, and the amount of people that did not understand the following was staggering. You cannot take a 327 round-trip night cruise from Miami to Australia and no, your friend did not just book this. No, there are in fact no ocean-bound cruises leaving from Arizona. You cannot take a cruise from Miami to Hawaii and back in 7 to 10 days. No, the airport is closed due to hurricane/flood/ice, and you cannot demand a flight on a different carrier out of the same airport in the next hour. Also no, you did not just see someone book this. Yes, it is a shorter flight for your friends from East Coast US to the Caribbean than you in Europe, and no, nobody can change that. Yes, I will need your DD-214 to confirm a military rate. No, your word you were in a covert unit will not suffice, and no, I'm not disrespecting the military because I cannot simply take your word for it. Yes, if a passport/visa/travel vaccinations are needed for you to travel, you will need it, and no, a manager cannot override this as it is a government requirement. I have been doing this for 6 years, and no, your friend's neighbor's hairdresser's roommate's cousin's mailman does not know more about this than I do. Okay, just imagining a full-grown adult trying to convince you they were a super secret spy has me cracking up. Oof. Good one. Okay, so my favorite was a guy who was planning his honeymoon, but he didn't have a lot of money. He was bummed about the cost of air travel. A friend suggested a train ride might be cheaper. He became frustrated after a few days of trying and complained that he couldn't find any trains going to Hawaii. It still didn't sink in because he had seen pictures of trains in Hawaii. He couldn't grasp that they were shipped there. It got even more surreal after that. Customers arguing that their tattoo is backwards, while their artist tries to explain that no, your tattoo is fine. It just looks backwards because that's how mirrors work. Just imagine what tattoos those people have gotten. A girl in one of my college classes argued that heart transplants shouldn't be allowed because that's where the feelings are, and the person receiving the heart wouldn't be the same person anymore. That's actually pretty funny if it wasn't so sad. I mean, it's obviously fake if one thinks about it, but I could see someone taking just the right classes to make it that far without knowing the truth simply because it never came up. I do aquatic habitat restoration in a spring-fed river that people frequently tube/float on. Myself and numerous others have been asked if it comes back around so they can get out. Friend of mine showered in cold water for a year cause he never thought of turning the other tap to see what it would do. That's the dumbest thing I've read in this thread so far. I have pressed every single button, turned every tap, and flicked every switch in my house at least 1,000,000 times, including fuses. How people can just stand in a shower and never try anything, especially if they don't have hot water, just blows my mind. I reckon hey, assuming that person was an adult, I have no idea how they survived to adulthood while being that dumb. I can't imagine having freezing showers for a year and never thinking, hey, I wonder what will happen if I turn that second knob. or moved the lever if it was one of those sort of taps. I don't know if I completely blame that person though. I've seen adults like that who've had a parent who did absolutely everything for them and never allowed them to think for themselves. Like the story I read a while ago of the boy who got his first job and had no idea how to use a broom and a mop. I used to work for a chatbot app. Our app would text our users every morning with a greeting in a different language. I.e. holla, bonjour, etc. One day we got blown up by a user saying their account was hacked. She said, "My name is Kim Smith, not Kim Kanajiwa. Someone's hacked my account." When we explained that our service has been clearly saying hello to her in other languages every day, and that konnichiwa is hello in Japanese and her account was fine, she went on a racist rant and said Disney was behind the destruction of America. Yep. Old boss had a morning routine of walking around the office with a bucket. He was watering all of the plastic flowers. Okay, I have been unfortunately guilty of this one time. A new girl started at work and she sat across from me, so we shared some desk space in the corner. She put these flowers there with a special vase that made it look like real water in the bottom. As a nice gesture I watered them for her before one weekend. She got a huge kick out of it, and we laughed about it all the time. I just had a customer yell at me for putting their eggs in a separate bag, saying they don't want all those bags and the paper ones always rip, before putting it in the bag and throwing a pound of flour on top. It was somewhat satisfying seeing their faces. We heard the cracks, until I realized I'm the one who needed to clean it up. Oh, also she complained that we hadn't warned her about the fragility of eggs. At the DMV, I went to renew my license. I was waiting in a room with the computers that people use to take the written portion. The clerk sat a man down, looked him in the eyes, and said, "If you pull your phone out it's an automatic fail." The window licker says 8 while pulling out his phone and immediately failing. I saw a guy in front of me at the DMV fail the eye test and tell the employee he has glasses, but they're at home. He got really mad when the employee told him he has to come back with the glasses and retake it. The Georgia senator that wanted to prevent sending troops to an island because he was worried it would capsize. About half the calls I take on a daily basis. People call 911 to ask whether Walmart is open, to report that they didn't get enough mayo on their burger, to complain that cleanup at a fatality wreck is taking too long. All sorts of silly, out of touch speak. Granted, there is probably some level of mental illness and/or substance abuse present in those calls. But still. Sounds like this can be an entire AskReddit thread itself. Getting a misdialed call from a random person who gets mad at you because you're not the one he/she was looking for. Happens with me several times a year. I once owned a smart car and some stranger approached me at a gas station about why I didn't have a slow vehicle sign in the back of it, since all moped cars must have that. I tried explaining that it was a real car, just a bit smaller, but he didn't take it. According to him, I was driving illegally, and he was surprised the police hadn't stopped me yet on the highway. My family has 2 electric cars and the sheer number of people who ask yes, but where do you put the gas? After explaining that it runs on batteries is staggering. I think it's because they are still thinking hybrid car rather than all electric car, but even after a very thorough explanation they often still go back to where's the gas go? My dad is a pesticide investigator for the state and heard this on a complaint. I set out all these bird feeders and bad baths, but not one bird comes to my yard. I bet it is all those pesticides that crop duster is laying down in the field. Local school board member, as they were standing in her 5-acre yard with 20 or more cats running around. At the start of working from home due to COVID, I had a few users submit tickets for connectivity issues. These tickets got through to lines of support before landing in my queue. Turns out that the corporate Wi-Fi doesn't follow you home, and you need home internet in order to connect to the VPN. I recently spent 20 minutes on the phone with a board member, trying to diagnose why his camera wasn't working for our online meetings. Funny thing. You have to actually have a camera in order for it to work. Funny you mentioned this. I work in it as well, and had an employee just last week complain that her speaker's volume was too low. Turns out she didn't have speakers and the sound was coming out of the tower under the desk. I used to manage a retail store that sold teen clothing. So as expected, I primarily had teens working for me. One employee came to the back room while I was on break and asked what I was eating. Somehow the topic turned to how I should brought chicken for lunch because she wanted chicken. I told her I was vegetarian and therefore don't eat meat. She tells me chicken is not meat. It's poultry, and vegetarians can eat poultry. She said at the grocery store the aisles list meat and poultry separately, so they're obviously different. We argued for a couple of minutes before I finally told her to go back to the sales floor. She didn't last at the job long, but damn. Wait, you should brought chicken because she wanted some? Ma'am. Yep. She would frequently try to help herself to other employees' lunches. Like I said, she didn't last long lol. You know the reason you bury a rattlesnake after you kill it is because bees will eat it. Then bees can sting people with rattlesnake venom. Guy I heard constantly trying to pick up women on public transit. That sounds like a sick superpower though. Then a bear eats the honey, and it gets snake fangs and stingers on its claws. The circle of life is both gorgeous and terrifying. I worked in retail for a few years, and it taught me that many people are either incapable or unwilling to read. I have had people walk up to me to ask me how much something is, only for the price tag to be featured prominently on the item. It's $9.99, ma'am. How did you know? It says so on the price tag, ma'am. The number of people who don't read menus at restaurants. It hurts me. Undefined. I worked with a lady who was remarking on how a friend of hers had lost a bunch of weight. She pondered. I wonder how many Diet Cokes she had to drink to do that. Undefined. Man. This made me a little sad. People are so susceptible to marketing these days that they think just because something is called diet it must be good for them. Reminds me of my flatmate from uni who used to drink smart water before taking exams. I teach 6th grade. One time a parent came to me after trying to help their child with math homework and asked, "What number is X worth?" It feels like it changes with every problem. I don't know if this is satire or not, but good job. It is not. The parent came to me after school without their child because they knew something was wrong and didn't want to look stupid in front of their kid. This is filed in my brain of parent reactions I can't fathom. Along with the mom that year who asked if her child could play piano in marching band. Piano in marching band. The more I think about it, Akita could spice up some of those salsa marches. There is a considerable overlap between the intelligence of the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists. Yasa my park ranger on why it's hard to design a bear-proof garbage can. I genuinely thought that was about to be a Yogi Bear quote. You've tried to stop my brilliant ideas with common sense 1,000 times. I spent hours trying to open this bear-proof picnic basket, only to find it was tourist-proof too. I worked at a bank. Mobile depositing had just became a thing. We received a picture of someone's cash for deposit. Yay. See bro, just wait like 2 hours and take another photo of the same cash and deposit it again. And again and again. Whoa. Instant money. Yeah bro. Instant money. Peep we are gonna be so rich off this 84. You mean our 168 bucks? People that stupid can't multiply 84 by 2. A woman I used to work with who insisted that any animal could reproduce with any other animal. She believed that sperm from any animal was the same and that DNA was irrelevant. She believed this because she once saw some sickly, possibly deformed puppies, and decided that they must have been half dog and half rat. Ah yes, rat terriers. A former coworker was talking about how she wanted to go back to school to get her master's degree because she only had a bachelorette degree and wanted more job opportunities. I said, "Do you mean a bachelor's degree?" She insisted it was pronounced bachelorette when it was given to a woman. Then she led me back to her office and pointed at her diploma to the word baccalaureate and said, "See, bachelorette." I had a coworker, really sweet girl, but dumb as peep, tell me she smoked American spirits because they were non-addictive. See, as she showed me the box. Oh, honey, no. That says no additives. Such a sweet, stupid girl. She was a good server, at least. These aren't addictive. I've quit 3 times already this week. I had a bald man return a hairdryer because it burnt his head. Every time I put on my glasses so I can see better while looking for my glasses. Using the flashlight on your phone to find your phone in the dark. Was at a party and someone's peepty old truck got stuck in some mud, so instead of sobering up and coming back the next day, he makes a Molotov cocktail with gas and throws it at the truck. The truck caught fire and was completely destroyed. Jason? Whenever you've got a problem, throw a Molotov cocktail and then you've got a different problem. Reminds me of a book by Douglas Adams. This group of people is struggling to solve a really baffling mystery whose answer was crucial to saving a bunch of people. But they are totally stuck without a clue. Then one of them, Dirk, yells aha, and grabs some paper, and starts writing, and said this is the answer. It explains everything. One of the other people said, but this is just gibberish. It's not even words. And Dirk said, well yes, there's still work to be done. But now I've reduced the whole thing to a matter of simply translating a page into English. Sounds much more manageable, doesn't it? When I was in high school, we were reading a short story about what would have happened if the Japanese attacked us back with nuclear weapons after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A girl in my class raised her hand and said something along the lines of, why does this matter? None of it is real anyway. The teacher had to ask her to clarify. But this girl thought WWII and the bombing of Japan were just from a movie and didn't actually happen. The best part is, the girl was half Japanese, soon to find. Wow, her mind must have been blown when she found out WWII happened. Wait until she hears about WWI. Worked at a larger grocery chain whose deli used scales that would show you digitally the weight, so 1.5 pounds would show 150 pounds on the scale etc. The person I worked at 35 years had to ask me to come over and tell her how much she had sliced every time she assisted someone for over 4 months. She had passed the written and verbal test they give to verify that you should be able to do this. She didn't seem to have problems reading any other signs or numbers, so I don't think dyslexia played a part, but man, it was so frustrating trying to do my job and hers. Along the same line, my previous employer used a 100-minute clock for the time clock. This meant if you arrived in time, your punch would read 8:50. The manager of the department assigned timekeeping to another person because he knew he didn't understand it. After several weeks of everyone punching in at 8:50, we all got called in for it. First of all, we were all salaried, except one person, so the time didn't really matter in terms of the law. But it kept the peace, so no one complained. We all got ripped up one side and down the other, and no one was allowed to speak. Not that any of them tried, except me. When the manager and the timekeeper finally shut up, I pointed out that the clock runs on 100 minutes, not 60, so therefore we were all on time, or early. They stood dumbfounded when they looked at the clock and it literally showed an analog clock with 100 minutes. So then I took it further to point out that as salaried employees, none of this matters, and that none of us ever left for much, giving them 9 hours instead of 8, and that they walk in at 8:30 and we are already there. So how could we really be arriving at 8:50? They understood and removed the stipulation that salaried employees need to use a time clock. What is the point of that 100-minute time clock? It's not literally 100 minutes. It's just looking at time worked as a decimal like any other measurement. It makes sense from a payroll perspective. At my last job I could print out my time card, and it had both time in and time out in regular format, and just over to the side it would show time worked in this decimal format. For example, in 8:00, about 4:30, 8:50. That means you clocked in at 8 AM, clocked out at 4:30 PM and worked a total of 5 hours that day. It's a bit unintuitive, but you get used to it. I work in it. I once had a lady call me from home because she couldn't get connected to her VPN. I asked her if she was connected to her home wireless network. She replied saying that she did not have home wireless. I then asked how she was connecting to the internet. Her reply was, "I'm using the cell tower. I can see it from my house." While this is technically possible with a hotspot or cellular card in your PC, this isn't what she meant. She thought she could get internet service via Wi-Fi from the cell tower. The woman that called into a radio station to complain about the deer crossing signs on a highway, saying that the deer will see the sign and consider this place a safe place to cross the road. Well, at least she's never heard of the "why did the chicken cross the road" joke. She'd call the FBI to deal with that sort of problem. When farms have trouble producing their crops, and you ask some dipspeep if that worries them, I don't get my food from a farm, I get it from Walmart. The distance that many people have from where their food comes from is shocking. One of my nieces had a cold as a toddler and was breathing through her mouth. My ex-Bill flipped out because he didn't want her to get carbon monoxide poisoning from breathing through her mouth instead of her nose the normal way. When my daughter was born, we had to see the hospital pediatrician before we could switch to our usual one. We're in a tiny exam room and he's going over the dos and don'ts for new parents. To precede this, he's an older southern man, and I assume she will be sleeping in a crib in the nursery. We have a bassinet set up beside the bed to make night feeding easier. She can't sleep with you. She won't be in the bed. She has a bassinet beside the bed. If she sleeps in the same room, there will be too much carbon dioxide and she'll suffocate. That's what causes SIDS. Then I sent this exam room unsafe. We put in a complaint with the practice and the hospital. That's some ridiculously incorrect information to be spouting off at people, especially parents who take everything a doctor says as gospel. I can't even find the logic in that. Not only this, but also co-sleeping in the same room is shown to reduce the incidence of SIDS. It is thought that the baby hears you breathing and it helps them self-regulate. Yep. The closer they are, the more they regulate. It's theorized that's part of why kangaroo care helps NICU babies. I'm an insurance claims adjuster. If you truly knew how many stupid drivers you're sharing the road with, you'd never drive again. Edit, because I keep getting this question. I avoid driving whenever possible. I have a car, but I take the bus to / from work. I never drive at night. I work in highway safety. Can confirm. I can no longer count on two hands the number of people I've stopped with in the middle lane of traffic on a freeway, with no bigger problem than a flat tire. When I question them as to why they stopped in the middle of a freeway, the typical answer is either the vehicle wouldn't go any further, or they don't want to damage their rim. I swear to whatever you want me to swear to, people will put the well-being of the rim on their car above their own safety and even the safety of their children. And the weird thing is, it makes perfect sense to them. On 9/11, the general manager called his daughter who was attending ASU to wake her up and make sure she saw what was going on. The customer service manager said, "It won't be on her TV yet. Arizona is 2 hours behind us." Why didn't Australia warn us about 9/11? After all, they are several hours ahead. Reminds me of a Facebook post that went, "Just found out China is like 12 hours in front of US. Why didn't they tell US about 9/11? FPeep, China 3 billion people died." Not verbatim but close. Fun fact about China. As large as the country is, the Chinese government makes the entire country be on one time zone. Essentially it would be like East Coast and West Coast America operating the same hours. I work at a restaurant. We were low on tomatoes for our tomato soup. So one person grabbed potatoes to see if we could use those instead. When my mum unironically claimed that the moon landing was fake because the moon was like 40 times the size of Earth. How that proves it was fake I don't know. Hate to think she raised me lol. I worked at Little Caesars and we were proofing the dough for pizza. My boss said at 7 p.m. that the dough needed to rise for 12 hours and took out her calculator to do the math. So I said that's gonna be 7 a.m. Then she said the dough will expire in 48 hours and started doing the math again. I told her it would expire 2 days from now and she said that's kinda weird how that works out. I quit shortly after that. The most surprising thing here for me is that Little Caesars bakes fresh dough and actually bothers with the long leavening time. Not necessarily the exact thing you're looking for, but when I was in high school I once had a friend come up to me bragging about his SAT. I recognized immediately that he got a pretty poor score. When I mentioned to him that I didn't think it was a very good score, he confidently proclaimed, "But it says I'm smarter than 15% of juniors, and I'm only a sophomore." To which I rebutted, "Yeah, but imagine the dumbest 15% of people. That's not very good." I had a friend once who truly believed that magicians like Chris Angel and David Blaine had some kind of magical power or telekinesis. Something along those lines. While watching one of those magicians on TV performing on the street he argued, "How could this be fake? Look at all those people. Can't fake all that. Has to be some kind of power or magic." I would then have to ask, do you realize that movies are fake? They fake entire universes, planets, cities, war, etc. He didn't get what I was getting at. Right. I know it's fake, but I do enjoy trying to figure out how they did it. Also it's just cool as peep what they can come up with, especially in live performances. I once was working at a Renaissance festival in South Florida. I was just barely 21, had gone down there for the winter to help out a musician friend, and was living a very frugal lifestyle. I don't think I even had a debit card at that point, and my cell phone was paper text at like 10 a message. So anyway I would totally get paid for booth sitting for some artists after the weekend, but by Friday, I was pretty broke. I had about 7 in gold dollar coins, because that's what I like to keep on me at fair to give out as change. I had the remains of the 20 I'd taken in coins, and other than that, I didn't have any other cash. We had a kids day at fair where schools bring kids on school trips, and so I needed to grab some food and get back to Deerfield Beach Park. So fully dressed in Renaissance garb, I ran into the Taco Bell. I figured my cash would go the farthest there. I ordered my food, and when I went to pay, the girl behind the counter laughs and goes, "Oh no. I need real money." I looked at her, confused. "These are real money. They are gold Sacagawea dollars." "Yeah. We only take US cash here. I need actual money to pay for the food." Now the line behind me is getting antsy, but the girl at the register is getting really bitchy and I'm like, what the peep do you do when a business won't take your payment? It wasn't like I was trying to pay in nickels. I had 4 worth of food and tried giving her 5 in coins. I'm like, this is all I've got on me. I don't know what to tell you, but it is legal US tendency right here. And I'm trying to show her the coins and she's yelling like I'm trying to pay her in Monopoly money. The guy behind me was like, yeah, those are real coins, but I don't think he wanted her eye turned towards him, so he wasn't very forceful. I asked if she could get a manager, and she was like, I ain't gonna waste his time with this bull speep. You either pay in real money, or leave, and she's grabbed my bag of food, so I can't go anywhere. I take out my wallet remembering the 2 lucky 2 bills I had carried for years folded up in the back pocket. I unfolded those, and she takes one look at the 2 bills. And I'm sure you can predict what happened. She blew up. Next thing I know, she's screaming for the staff to call the cops and telling me not to go anywhere because I'm trying to rip her off and pass off all this fake money, and she gon' see my ass to jail. Meanwhile, I'm hungry, tired, and now very irritated, and that's when a cop car pulls up. They weren't responding to the call. I don't even know if the store had called. I was ready to walk out, nearly in tears, when the two cops come in and all eyes turn to them. There's about 10 people now in line behind me, and everyone turns to look at the cops, who very clearly have a WTF is going on, I just stopped to get food look on their faces. That's when the obnoxious register girl and two co-workers she called over start waving my money around. That was the best part. She took my money and was refusing to give it back or to give me my food, and the cops go to the counter to figure out what she's freaking out over. At this point, the manager heard the commotion and joins the two guys and the register girl. The three teenager employees are all going on and on about the girl in the costume trying to give them fake money, trying to rip them off, and the cops very quickly put an end to that. The one cop holds up the two bills and my gold dollar coins, and he tells the staff that both are indeed actual real money. The girl is still protesting, saying but it's not America money and we only take America money. When the manager finally realized what happened and apologized, telling the teenagers, who looked to be completely in disbelief, that yes, the coins and bills are both really United States money, the manager offers to personally remake my meal and the cops as well, apologizing for everything. I'm really late at this point, and I didn't really trust them to make my food, even if the manager was being really nice, but the cop said, I tell you what, I'll come back and get your info while you make our food. How about that? So he accompanied the manager back while he washed his hands and made our food. The other cop gave me my money back and took my info. As I was finally leaving with my food, the guy behind me jokes with the cop, I think I'm going to pay with a handful of $half I've got in my car. What do you think? I was so floored that anyone could be so ignorant. And not just ignorant, but completely and utterly unwilling to realize or to recognize that they had made a mistake and were wrong. All she did was double down, insisting we were all wrong and I was just a thief. So frustrating. Infantryman was told to trim the hedges, so he lifted the lawnmower. His buddy started it. As a brand new medic, I spent about 6 hours pulling finger meat from the hedges. Undefined. Update. Sorry, I'm a derp and on a phone. For clarification, it was early 2004 after OIF 1 in the 82nd. I was a PFC with only a year and a half in service. We bandaged him, then used tourniquet temporarily. Senior medics took him to the ER. I was field sanitation qualified, so I was left in charge of cleanup. 6 hours was excessive, but after we pulled most the meat and bone out, we had to hose down the hedges, the ground, the grass he bled in, the ground/floor outside and inside where he left a decent amount of blood had to be rinsed and sterilized. The mower had to be rinsed and cleaned. It had some damage from the drop. The private that started the mower had to be smoked by his NCO. We finished in about 4 hours of actual work with 2 hours of peeping off mixed in. Cause the sham shield is a real deal. Holy speep, that's dumb. Holy speep, that's a thumb. At a work Christmas party in a Mexican restaurant, an Irish colleague was trying to argue the pronunciation of jalapenos with the Mexican waitress was jalapenos. He wasn't joking and got so upset with her taking the piss out of him that he made a scene and we almost got thrown out. In grade 10, we had a science test and the teacher gave 1 point for putting a date on the paper and 1 point for your name on the, then there were 98 points for the rest of the test. A guy sitting in front of me got 0.5/ write the date and only wrote his first name. That's peeping hilarious. Reminds me of the time my classmate copied the test answers of my other smarter classmate in 2nd grade. He got caught because he copied the name too. 2nd grade? I saw that happen in high school. The next day the teacher was just savage, publicly calling it out. 30 years later I still remember him starting out the class congratulating Todd on doing so well on the test, but next time, he didn't need to hand in 2 copies. Oh, and by the way, I didn't get anything handed in by Mike. Sorry Mike. You get a 0. University professor. I have caught it at this level. Just scroll down a web page or Facebook feed and have a look at the ads. Things like only 2% can solve this puzzle speak like that. Those ads get posted so much because they actually work on a lot of people. My fav if those see what your fandom / whatever name is based on your date of birth / hometown / first and last letters of your mom's maiden name / etc. Things like you have a chart and people post their results. And it's a goldmine for anyone looking for the answers to those pesky security questions LMAO. There are still people who fall for, if you post your password it comes up as asterisks. Watch. Big Penis Lover 1010. Wow. It works. One of my closest friends. Really good guy but well. I'm learning Spanish, and I once told him I was reading this Don Quixote book. I complained about how difficult it was, because it was written in 1605. And he said wait. Spanish existed back then. I was doing a covered decon of a medical supply warehouse that had a confirmed positive employee not too long ago, and while my team was inside doing our thing, the floor/shift manager was following us around without a mask or gloves or really any of the proper PPE except for a high-vis vest and steel toe boots. I had to tell her to leave the room. I was fogging with virucide. Undefined. That trick where you call water by a scary chemical name like dihydrogen monoxide, so that people will want to regulate or ban it. My local pool contains high quantities of a chemical used in industrial cleaning solutions, and is used to cool nuclear reactors. Think of the children. Fact. Every person who is dead has consumed dihydrogen monoxide at some point in their lives. High school. History. Topic. Titanic. So the iceberg was about the size of Yesmes. D_. Don't icebergs fall out of the sky? To this day I picture a iceberg the size of a small island falling from the sky being seen for hundreds of miles away like a peeping meteor. I once got into an argument with someone over my own name. There are two pronunciations, German and English. And they just couldn't accept the fact that I use the English pronunciation despite the fact that we were speaking English, and it's what I've used my whole life. But nope, I was lying to mess with them. I've got two little girls who were born 15 months apart. They look pretty similar, and we get asked if they are twins pretty often. Even though one is quite a bit taller, you'd be forgiven for thinking they were fraternal twins. But yeah. I once got into an argument with somebody over whether my daughters are twins or not. It wasn't until I pointed out that I was literally there, watching them being birthed, that they finally conceded. Knew a kid who drank bleach to prove it wouldn't kill you. A week later he showed up at school after taking a shot. He said he proved his point when the teacher asked why he was bragging about it. Mr. Hawk just said, but you cannot argue that without that medical treatment you'd have died, though you even said you have stomach damage and a burn esophagus yourself. This kid was bragging about that. He was not mentally disabled or otherwise. He was just that kind of idiot. Undefined. I knew a girl in high school who wanted to breathe fire. She put lighter fluid in her mouth, and instead of blowing it onto a flame, she lit it on fire inside her mouth, and then tried to blow it out. She came to school the next day with a bandage over half her face. Sounds like these two would be a great couple, if they haven't died by now. A modern Romeo and Juliet. Instead of meeting at a party, they meet in the air for being complete peeping morons. And then end up killing themselves because they are complete peeping morons. Ah, young romance. The fact Florida had to tell people not to shoot at the hurricane. There were people in Adana, Turkey that shot at the sun because it was too hot. People that cut holes in their masks because it's easier to breathe. I've seen countless people here on the news wearing the masks in such a way that only their mouths were covered. Their noses are completely exposed. You might as well not be wearing a mask at all if you use them like that. I saw someone just the other day who pulled down their mask to cough. It was a stunning event. Our town was live streaming a holiday parade in case you were not able to make it out in person. This included a live chat feature as well. One mother who lives nearby wrote into the chat that her daughter didn't get outside in time and asked for them to turn around and come back to her street. That's less dumb and more entitled. That people act surprised at the total death count going up. It's always going to go up. If it was going down, that's an entirely different pandemic altogether. Lol. I hope the zombies follow social distancing. Well, if they wear masks it may slow the infection rate, seeing as they wouldn't bite so easily. My ex had a student, one who occasionally misspelled his own name, turn in a very well written essay that just so happened to be clearly printed off the internet. Included the URL at the bottom. He gave the kid a 0. Kid's grandmother came into the office completely distraught because she knows her grandson wrote that essay. Her proof. He said he wrote it. When it was shown to her on the internet, she insisted that he must have written it and put it on that website himself. Thank goodness the principal was a good one and let her know she didn't buy that for a minute. Also, when I was a teller, I asked a man for ID. He showed me his personalized belt buckle. When I said that wasn't enough, he offered to go get his sister from the car. She could tell me who he was. He didn't understand why neither of those would work. Apostrophe. Who else would wear a belt buckle with my name on it? Why would my sister lie to you? She doesn't want any money. Had someone argue with me because they were sure that the cavemen were before the dinosaurs and that it is impossible that dinosaurs even existed. She considers mammoth and sabertooth to be dinosaur. Was sitting next to a girl who was notoriously dumb at our school. Thought people were being too hard on her until she straight up asked Google who invented water. A lot of people still believe blatant pseudoscientific facts, for instance the blood being blue inside the body when it's not introduced to the outside air. The fact that I'm a retail worker in 2020 and everyone thinks calling me a hero is gonna solve all my crippling financial struggles. The average voter. Churchill said it best. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Churchill really said everything there was to be said, didn't he? Mark Twain picked up the slack. In the first place, God made idiots. That was for practice. Then he made school boards. I have a fraternal male twin, I'm female, and in high school I had a girl ask if we were identical. I said no, he's a dude, and she said no, I mean genetically are you identical? And I just stared at her wondering if she skipped all of our science classes to not know the answer. I male have a fraternal female twin. I have had this question asked too many times to count. I always respond with no, we are conjoined. More than half of the time. They believe me, and I never correct them. Myself. Looking for my phone when it was in my hand all the time. Then answering a call. And continuing looking for it during the call. Undefined. Me. On a call with my mom. Getting ready to leave the house, but spending 20 minutes freaking out that I can't find my phone. My mom. Asking if I'd checked my purse. It's in the DNA lol. The people who believe 5G is responsible for spreading the virus. Seriously, I don't understand how electromagnetic signals could possibly distribute a biologically impactful virus. Seriously, there's a new low every month/year. As I understand that whole conspiracy theory, at least the start of it, nobody thought 5G spread coronavirus. They thought 5G was actually killing tens of thousands in its own way, and the coronavirus was an attempt at a cover-up. Coronavirus was either completely fabricated, or a fairly harmless new virus they used to carry the blame. The comments section of any website. Multiple times while working at the Genius Bar I'd help people reset their password, and then we go back to the App Store to complete the purchase they are trying to make, and they already forgot the new password. Within seconds. Honestly, that's not stupidity, that's short-term memory loss. I worked as phone support for Comcast for 3 years. As an internet support rep, I was qualified to deal with all forms of call. So anything from TV, internet, phone, and billing hit my horrible automatic answering phone. During my period of employment there, I had to deal with the DTV transition, and the decision to no longer offer Norton Av and instead offer McAfee Average. If you've heard a dark story about dealing with a phone rep, or a horrible caller, I've had that call, I assure you. But hey, clear example. My phone service doesn't work and yet, I can see that they're literally calling me from the non-working phone service. And then they're angry when the first step in troubleshooting is to reboot the unit, immediately dropping the call. No, I didn't hang up on you. You hung up on you. Because the thing that was broken works just fine, and you were using it. But you didn't believe me. I'm only trained and specialized in troubleshooting and maintaining this hardware. The f*** do I know? Well, all the people who cannot distinguish between mean and median comes to mind at this moment for some reason. It was an article about a protest at the federal detention center in support of an undocumented worker who was being detained preliminary to deportation. The article explained how the person worked at X factory, had lived in the States for Y number of years, attended church Z, sent kids to school P, volunteered for organization Q, and was a model citizen of community R, and all of these people had turned out on her behalf. Leading the send her / she's here illegally comment brigade was the comment, "I'm tired of paying her taxes." And I'm like, that is literally the stupidest thing I have ever read. Reddit. The 2016 election. People panic buying toilet paper. At a 4th of July fireworks display, we were about a quarter mile from the launching site. So we would see the shell explode in the air, but not hear it for a half second or so. Because, as we all know, light travels much faster than sound. Some moron behind us was explaining to a bunch of kids that it was due to the Doppler effect. Or, so close. Myself perhaps. Those small metro supermarkets that leave the fridges open to cool down on a hot day. An open fridge in a closed room is a heater. CNN. Trump getting elected president is a pretty good example. Old white people flocking into Applebee's, where I work without any PPE in the midst of a peeping plague. The cloth masks are a joke anyway. The virus can easily get through them. Every time I go out shopping and see the complete disregard for corona safety that everyone seems to have, I lose hope for humanity. Cloth masks do nothing anyway. The virus can easily get through them. It is security theater. Irony. It's a painful word. My existence. I'm so incredibly stupid it amazes even me. I get average Xemoc 4s and 5s, and yet I have the thought process of a peeping 6-year-old, and that's an insult towards 6-year-olds. The armed protesters in Michigan. COVID-19 truthers. Anti-vaxxers. Balacero. The Browns drafting Johnny Manziel. COVID-19 in America. When Street View first came out, I was talking about it in class and someone yelled out, "Whoa, is this live?" I mean, that's not really that stupid. They just didn't know. Yes, Google has the ability to show any street in the world live. Makes total sense. So at no point in your life have you had an invention so revolutionary? You've never had a moment of wonder without knowing how it worked. Happened pretty often in the digital age coming up. Most people don't know the difference between average and median. The average person doesn't know the difference. To verify this, you'd have to ask a lot of people. The median person may or may not know the difference. To find out, you'd only have to ask one person. Trump supporters. Not an example, but Isn't it crazy to think that most people who view this actually fit into that stupid category themselves, but are too dumb to realize it? We're all total strangers. And we all think we are okay, but have no way of validating that. I think about this so much. Lol, no one thinks they're stupid, so what if I've been living life thinking I'm doing okay, but I'm actually dumb? Wait, I found a loophole. If you think you're smart, you're dumb. If you think you're dumb, you're dumb. If you think you're smart with a possibility of being dumb, you're smart. Up top. I use the word dumb so much. It's actually dumb. A coworker girl I hadn't talked to at Domino's. First question she asked me ever was, how much is half of 32? I thought she was joking, so I laughed pretty hard, until I noticed her stone cold stare. Reddit. Most governments have about 40% approval. I cannot eat gluten, dairy or soy. Quite a few times people have asked why I'm eating a potato. Because it is gluten. Also, while eating eggs, someone stated, since it's next to the milk in the grocery store, eggs must be dairy. I used to work at a gas station. I had a guy who didn't know how much gas his car took, so he asked if I knew how much it took, and I was, sir, I don't drive your car. A lady told me today that you can get COVID-19 through your ears. Kind of like how you get sick if the virus gets into your eyes/nose/mouth. So apparently viruses can infect you through your ears now too. I live in Atlanta. 3 weeks ago people wore masks, gloves and stayed in the house unless they needed groceries. Today, it looks like COVID never existed. The only difference is the governor, not doctors, not some kind of miracle cure. But the governor said, hey, you can go outside now. If you believed in COVID then, why not now? In Britain, you're supposed to ride your bicycle on the road. I walked out of a drive the other day and nearly got hit by a guy on the path. I told him he should be on the road. His reply was, it's a mountain bike, not a road bike. That half of the American people voted for Hillary. Trump presidency. Worked as a wildlife rescue technician. We had someone on the phone calling us to come pick up a dead fox her husband had found in the woods. Or the person who found a bird with a broken wing and asked if it would be better if they left it outside. Sure, lady, lem break your arm and leave you in the garden. See if you'll be fine. Or the person who kept an egg-laden baby hedgehog in her own care for so long that when she gave it in, the maggots had eaten it hollow. Don't know how to look after it? Call someone who does. This woman thought breathe mints were chips and now everyone clowning on her. Trump. And the people who voted for him. The POTUS suggesting we inject disinfectants. Is it wrong to use a 10-year-old boy as an example? Because I just heard my nephew say that 2011 was the day he was born. As a matter of fact, he was born in the year 2010. My boss was an older Italian Jude bastard, terrible with technology, can't even answer a cell phone will pick up, and if he don't hear you instantly he start with this peeping phone like 1996. We were on a flight from Boston to Vegas, the movie is playing on the back of each seat. I look over, and he looks agitated. I said, what's the matter, you don't like the says who the peep wants to watch a musical. I look down, he was watching the movie with the headphones plugged into the AM/FM radio jack. I almost pissed myself laughing. Our election process. I have high functioning autism. I was diagnosed with a superior intellect. As far as logic and reasoning, I'm pretty high up the pole, as in, if average IQ and average height were linked I'd be 7 feet 7. But oh my god, I have the survival skills of a Kit Kat bar. I can organize seemingly random items in multiple different ways depending on requirements. I can tell you the difference between a choice and an option and the advantages of either. I can give a straight answer which disregards ethics or morals or anything that regular people get caught up in. But I cannot fathom the goddamned airplane on a treadmill problem. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter how smart we are compared to others, the most capable of us can still be pretty incapable. Please nobody try to explain the airplane/treadmill problem. The issue isn't that I don't understand it. Every scam product on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Many of them get debunked by various engineering/science YouTubers. And I don't blame the average person for being largely technically illiterate. Well, I try not to anyway. But then you have the superfans who respond to any and all criticism with "if peep the haters or but that much." And that's how you get Theranos, solar roadways, etc.